All right, so I'm getting the okay that we are good to go, Sam. So everybody, thank you so much for taking time on this Wednesday afternoon to join us. We're really excited to be here. My name is Andrea. I'm the Director of HR at Humi. And here with me, I have Sam, who is our product manager on this feature. So again, in this webinar, we're covering a feature that's actually going live tomorrow. So as you will know, that feature is offer letters. So we're going to talk a little bit about why we built it. We'll walk you through the product itself so that you can learn some of the ins and outs. And one thing that I'd like to highlight is that there is actually a Q&A session at the end. And if you have any questions throughout, please do use the Q&A feature below. We have some members on the team who are taking a look at that, and they'll share questions that are common as they come up. So please make sure you do take advantage of the Q&A feature here. So let's jump right in, Sam. So let's talk about why we built this. So of course, many of the people on this call know there's a lot of back and forth that happen at this stage of the process. You've found an amazing candidate, you're ready to make an offer, but they may not be on your platform already. So in that negotiation stage, this is an element of the feature that our product team has really decided to build out and then make sure that you can actually extend offer letters to people who aren't yet on your platform. And one thing that we wanted to keep top of mind is just an overall cohesive employee experience, so that from the point of applying through to the point of that exciting moment of getting that offer, it's a very cohesive process. So now that we understand some of the reasons why we built this, I'm going to pass it off to Sam, who is the expert and who's going to share with us what all went into building the feature.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Andrea. Yeah, another thing I just want to touch on briefly before walking through the features that we've included in this release is some of the challenges that were involved from a technical side and from a design side. So just to give you a peek behind the curtain, we were designing this knowing that this would be actually used by people that are outside of your organization. So we've designed the whole flow to be as smooth and seamless as possible, and that even for the recipient, so the candidate in this case, the recipient of that offer letter will know how to use it super easily. It's super intuitive and very secure. Also, from a technical side, it meant that we had to extend our borders, beyond just our companies, so that people outside our organizations can sign documents. So we've accomplished that in a very secure and intuitive way. So very excited to show this today. Here's a quick overview of some of the features. So I'm going to go through all these in a little more detail in a demo, but just to give you the high level. So you can create offer letter templates. So that means you can create one template and you can use it for all of your offers. You can have different versions, you can have multiple offers, and then you can plug in your fields. And when you go to send it, you can just update that info depending on the candidate you're sending it to. So that means you don't have to create a million individual PDFs. It saves you a lot of time. You can send offer letters to candidates who don't have a Humi account. Again, you don't want to have to be asking candidates to sign up for your HR software before they've even accepted the job. So we've made that process really seamless by extending that with just a secure private link. You can also send offers from the recruiting module. So Humi recruiting users will be really excited to see this. We've really bridged that gap from recruiting and onboarding and now added that offer piece in between. So you can go straight from recruiting all straight through to onboarding very seamlessly. You can also revise offers. So this is something Andrea touched upon, is that this is never a very linear process. There's always some back and forth. Sometimes, it's a once through, but sometimes there are changes to be made. Maybe they need a different start date. Maybe there's some salary adjustments needed. You can make all those changes really easily directly from Humi. Finally, you can track the status of an extended offer. So especially for larger hiring teams that'll have multiple open offers, it's really easy to see all of those extended offers and their statuses. So I'll go into all these in detail during the demo. So now, without further ado, I'm going to show you what this looks like. So I'm logged into, we have just a demo account here. This is all dummy data, and I'm logged in as an admin. So let's say I have a candidate that I want to send an offer to. The first thing I have to do is I have to create an offer letter template. So keep in mind, you only have to do this once. Once you have your template set up, you can reuse it, but I'm going to show you what that looks like. Let's go in, I'm going to add a document. And you may notice that there's now a third option. So before we just had signing templates and view only documents, we now have this third option called an offer letter template, which allows you to send it, like I said, to people outside of your organization. So I've got a dummy offer letter here. I'm going to drag that in. Let's call it offer letter example for webinar. very creative offer letter name. Oh, I've already used that name. Sorry, let me use another name. Let's call it number 2. And now what it's doing is it's taking that offer letter, so that PDF file that I uploaded, and it's loading it into HelloSign, which is our signing partner. And now from here, we can plug in all those fields that we're going to want to automatically populate when we send out that offer. So I've got all these labels here. You're not going to put those on your own offer letters, but we have this toggle up here. So what you want to do is change it to sender. You can think of the sender in this scenario as Humi, because that's where you're pulling all that information from. You're the sender, and that's sort of the source of this data. So we have this text box field, and all you got to do is drag a text box onto the document. And now you can select what information you want to be populated there. So in this case, it's the applicant name. And I've got all these options from this list. I've got compensation frequency. I've got compensation rate. I'm going to put in their legal full name. I've also got the positions. Let's throw the position in here. Candidate position. All right, we got a couple more, and obviously you can put as much or as little as you want here. I've just got a couple examples for demo purposes. Let's throw in their start date as well. So we got candidate start date. We also have an expiry. So you can put the expiry directly in the document, as I'm doing right now, but this expiry date will also affect the validity of the offer itself. So I'll show that in a minute as well. So let's go to offer letter expiration date. And those are all the fields I want to pull directly from Humi. So now I'm done with sender, and I want to go down to candidate, because now this is info I need from the candidate. So I need their signature, of course, and I need the date signed, and that will populate automatically. So all the candidate will have to do is sign there, and they don't have to download anything. They don't have to print or scan or do anything like that. They'll get a link, they open up that link, and they can sign right on Humi. And that's it. So now I'm going to save this document, and I can reuse this template as many times as I like. Also, we have this tab here called Candidates Assigned. So for signing templates in Humi, you might know that we have employees assigned. So if you want to see everyone within the company that has signed a given signing template, you can do that. And just the same thing for offer letters, you can see which candidates have been assigned. So if there were candidates, of course, we just created this one, you would see the candidates' names, the date it was sent, and the status of that offer. So now we've just sent out that offer. I'm going to go into the people module now and show you, we now have this offers table. So this is a new tab that we've added to the people module. And we can see all of the offers that we've ever sent. So this includes offers that are currently outstanding. That includes offers that have been accepted. That includes offers. Here's an example of one where it's been accepted and that person has been hired. It includes expired offers. So it's sort of just everything you need to know. This is your home for everything offers in Humi. Now I'm going to show you what it looks like from the candidate's perspective. So I don't want to go fishing around in my inbox and logging in and out. So I've just recorded this piece for convenience, but this is what it looks like. So what happens is the candidate will receive an email like this. You have the candidate's name, you have your company name, you have the position title, you have the expiration date. So as you can see, this one expires on April 16th, and it gives you some instructions if you want to decline, if you want to make changes, you can reach out to the hiring manager. And now all I do is I click that button, it'll pull me into our HelloSign signing interface. It says it's not legally binding because it's a demo. The candidate will not see that. And as you can see, all of the information that we've created is now populated in the document. The date is added automatically. All we have to do is add our signature, insert that signature, save, and then it's done. So in this case, we only had one thing to fill out. That was the signature. Click I agree. That's it. The candidate is done. So it's super, super seamless from the candidate perspective. It tells them that they've signed the letter, and it tells them that they will have access to download that letter if they want. So they'll get an email right after this with a copy of that signed offer letter. So that's what the candidate experience looks like. I'm going to pop back over to the admin side. So again, we're the admin, and we have a bunch of outstanding offers. And you can see a lot of details related to each offer, and I want to show you what that looks like. So let's go into an example of one that is currently pending. So we sent out an offer to Jimi Hendrix. This guy is the best, so this is a note we've added. And as you can see, there's a few pieces of information on this page here. It looks very simple, but there's a lot of functionality packed into this one page. So for one, we have the candidate information. So we've got their name, we've got their email, we've got their manager, we can add a note. So in this case, I wrote this guy's the best because Jimi Hendrix is the best. We've got the current offer details. So you may be thinking, why is it current offer? That's because you can actually create multiple offers. So for example, let's say we wanted to revise that offer. We could do that and it would take us back into that offer flow and we could update that information. So let's say, for example, Jimi Hendrix wants a different start date. So let's go in, he's a busy guy, he's got shows to play and stuff. So he needs to change his start date. Let's go in and we can change that start date, for example. And now we can go back in and it will regenerate that exact same offer letter. So I didn't upload a new PDF. I didn't go and change a Word doc and save it and re-upload it and then send another email. All I did was I changed that start date. And now they've received a new offer letter and they can just go and re-sign that exact same one. So that's what you want to do if you want to do a revision. I'm going to pop back in here and show you some of the other things you can do. And so as you can see, that original one that we had has now been withdrawn. So if you make a revision, it will automatically withdraw the first one and it will send out a new one. You can also track the offer progress. So here, let me show you one that has a little bit more stuff going on. So here's one where it's been accepted, for example. So we can see that it was sent on April 14th. We can see it was seen on April 14th. And we can see that it was accepted on April 14th. So in this case, these are all the same day, but you would be able to track the progress of that offer. So if you want to check in and see how your candidates are doing, you can see all that right here. Now, the last thing to do is just hire that candidate. You can do that directly from here. Some other things you can do from this page are you can withdraw an offer. You can indicate that the candidate declined, or you can delete that candidate. So let's say if you didn't want that candidate to show up on your offer table there, let's say it was just a test or for whatever reason you want to remove that candidate, you can delete them. And you can also make the distinction between withdrawing that offer and indicating that the candidate declined, because it's a really important metric to track for your success rates for recruiting. So you're also able to distinguish those two. I'll show you a couple other examples of other situations. So here's one where we made a revision. Let's say there was a change that was needed, sort of similar to how I showed before. You can leave a note saying they requested a later start date. The latest offer has been updated to include this change. So now I can see, oh, that's why there's another offer. And both of these were unsigned. I can also go in and see, here's one where it expired. So once it hits that expiration date, that offer will expire. And at that point, the candidate can no longer sign. So that link will become invalid and they will not be able to accept that offer. But this is, of course, all very clearly communicated to them. You can have that directly in the offer. It's in the email. So that will be very clear to the candidate. Here's another example of someone that we've already hired. So this is another huge bonus of this feature. So once you do hire someone through an offer, so this is an example of, I sent an offer, they accepted the offer, I hired the candidate, and now I can actually go ahead and view that employee profile directly from here. And the added benefit is that signed offer letter will appear directly on their profile under the documents module. So I can see I have their signature, that paper trail is automatically saved, and that didn't require any additional work whatsoever. That is totally done behind the scenes. You don't even have to think about it. And the last thing I want to touch on here is the ability to send an offer from the recruiting module. So this is another bonus for anyone who's using Humi recruiting. If you have your applicants, you can go into any applicant, and let's say this is someone that we're happy with, we want to extend an offer. We can go in and we can send an offer directly from the recruiting module. And what it'll do is it'll pull in that information that you've already uploaded. So you've got their name, you've got their email, and you can then populate the rest of that information and send an offer directly from the recruiting module. Finally, you will also, of course, get notifications at every step along the way. So you're never going to be blindsided. You will get a notification, for example, when an offer letter has been accepted. And as you can see, we have action required. So in this case, it means we haven't hired that candidate. I can pop in, I can see, okay, there still is this action to be completed. And then once I do that, that little action required label will go away and the candidate's on board. So that's everything I had to show for the demo today. I'm going to pop back to our slides. As far as next steps, so this feature goes live tomorrow. It's currently in beta. Some of you may have already tested it out. And if so, we'd love to hear your feedback. We'll be sending out a feedback form in about 2 weeks. So please give it a try, even if you're just sending tests to yourself. feel free to poke around, and we'd love to hear any feedback you may have. And finally, we're going to be sending out a recording of this webinar. So if any of your colleagues weren't able to attend today, you can share that with them. And support.humi.ca is your go-to place for anything to do with Humi. If you have any questions, we have our support docs there, and you can also reach out to our lovely, lovely CX team from there as well. That's it.
Okay, Sam, we have a couple questions. Actually, one of them is going back, walking through how to extend an offer. So if you could go back to that, and
Sure.
then in the meantime, I'm just going to be asking a few of the questions. There's been some great chat. And as you're pulling that up, maybe walk us through again the process to actually extend an offer. And then we have some questions about what you do if you use a separate ATS outside of Humi, but you want to add the candidate and use this feature to extend an offer. So what do you do in that case?
Sure. Yeah, so to send out the offer, we go to our offers tab. Oh, I kind of breezed past this, didn't I? So what you want to do is you want to fill out the candidate information directly on the send offer page. So let's say we're hiring, I don't know, Jack Black or something. I recently watched School of Rock, so that's top of mind. We can fill out that information here. And now we can select the offer letter template. So I showed how to create the offer letter. All we got to do is pop in here. I'm going to choose that one that I just created. And you can also preview it at this stage as well. So let's say you had created multiple different offer letter templates, and you want to just double check, oh, which one did I choose? Okay, this is the one I wanted. If you have multiple pages, you can scroll through. I'm just going to exit out of there. And now in the offer letter details, this is where you populate all of those pieces that you entered into the offer letter. So for example, we had the position, we added the start date and the offer letter expiration date. If you also added the salary field, if you added a bonus or any other field there as well, it'll ask you to populate that here.
Now
so
that
in this case,
offer letter expiration date, that's something that's customized. We had some questions about how many days after the offer is extended, it expires. So is that true that it's based on whatever's input?
Exactly. So that you can customize it when you send it out. And that's not something that you have to define for the template. So you can still use the same template and change the offer letter expiration date for individual candidates. So let's say, for example, in this case, Jack Black's an accountant. We'll have them start on Friday, and we can have them, we'll give them a little more time. We'll start on the 30th, and it can expire on Friday, for example. So on Friday, that will expire. Friday at midnight, they will no longer have access. And then you can review the information here, and you send that out, and that's it. And then it takes you into that flow that I showed before. So the candidate will receive the PDF, they can sign directly, and now we have that new offer right here.
Okay. And then now in the notes section, Sam, can you just explain, is that confidential? Does the candidate ever see that? I know in the Jimi Hendrix, you said this guy's great because he is. So can you talk a little bit more about the notes feature?
Yeah, great question. So this is totally confidential. This is totally for internal use only. The candidate will never see this. This doesn't get added to their profile or anything like that. This is just for your own internal purposes. If you want to leave a note regarding a particular candidate, I find it's really useful if you are making revisions to an offer letter, just to dictate, what was needed, what was the communication there, for example. But really, there's no limits to what you can include, and it is totally private and confidential.
Okay. And now, can we go through and again hire this candidate? There's some questions around not only the documentation, which I'll share that question, but who is on the hiring team? So if you extend an offer and you're on my team, and this candidate's reporting into me, who has visibility into seeing this documentation and seeing when it's signed?
So this would depend on what roles and how you've set up your roles and permissions. So admins would obviously have access to everything. And then whoever has access to hire new candidates and then also view people in the system will be able to hire people from the offers tab.
Okay.
And then in terms of what you see on their profile, that'll totally just be dependent on whatever other roles that you have set up. But that's sort of not directly related to offers. That's just, once they've been hired and that document's been added to that profile, it just becomes like any other document on their profile.
Okay.
Yeah.
And now when we're revising the offer, what happens if the candidate negotiates a clause out of this standard offer letter? So for example, there may have been a probationary period in that template, and now the candidate's negotiated that out. What happens in that scenario?
So if there are total material changes, so since you are uploading a PDF, in cases where you need to change the body of the offer letter itself, you could just go and upload a new offer letter. So my recommendation would be just go upload a new PDF, make sure you name it clearly. You can preview it as well. And then you would have to revise it like that. You can change, so let's say if we go revise, you can go and change the offer letter template as well. So I would just make sure that you've uploaded the second one, and then from this stage, you can swap that out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And once the candidate's hired, does this change? Does this process change the visibility, sorry, of the new hire as onboarding in the people directory? So once we click hired, do they now transition into Humi as onboarding, or what happens there?
So when you click here, I'll just show what that looks like. So if you hire a candidate, you'll get a warning right now just because they haven't gone through all the steps. So, there may be circumstances where maybe you had a verbal agreement, and even though they haven't signed the paper document, you want to hire them anyway. You've added this little message as a warning. So if you go and hire them, this will all look very familiar. It just takes you into your regular new hire flow. It pulls in their name and their email, but this is essentially the same thing as if you were to go here and add a new employee. But the difference is it will link it to that offer letter so that that document will also be automatically added, and it saves you a few steps. It pulls some of that information in for you.
Okay. Okay, great. And there's two questions, Sam, about once we extend the offer letter to a candidate. So backing up just a little bit. One of the questions was within the video, it said, if you want to decline or change this offer, to reach out to the hiring manager. So we have some people asking, is there a way to customize what that messaging says?
So currently the messaging is not customizable. That is something we do have planned for future updates. These are the types of things, again, this is the first version of offer letters. We're really looking forward to hearing more pieces of feedback like this. This is a great piece of feedback. But in the current iteration, you can't customize that copy. So the expected flow would be the candidate would reach out, through whatever other communication channel you had been using up until that point, and you could extend a new offer to them just by revising. So from the candidate perspective, they can either just sign, or they can reach out to you and say that they need revisions.
Okay. And once you have a candidate who has accepted an offer, but let's say they're not starting until July 2021, would you then hold off on clicking hire candidate, or what happens in that scenario?
That's totally up to you. It's again, this sort of is the same thing as like hiring the candidate from the offer letter will be the same thing as adding an employee through the new hire flow. So you can still set their start date in the future. If you want to give them access to the system earlier, you can do that as well. But they won't become active until their start date.
Okay. Okay.
So it's totally like it totally depends on your preferences.
Okay. Now, lots of questions around multiple signatures and co-signers. So is that functionality available right now?
So that is not in the current version. That's another thing that we did have in our plans, but weren't able to fit it into the first version, but it's something that we are looking to hear how much feedback we get on that feature in particular. And if that's something that's a really high priority for our clients, we will definitely look into implementing that.
Okay. And in terms of billing for that candidate who you send the offer to in Humi, does billing for that candidate who you send the offer to in Humi begin when you send the offer, or when you officially hire them?
That is a very good question. When does the billing? I have not gotten this question yet. I'll have to check with the team on that one and get back to you.
Okay. Very good question.
Yeah, that's a good question.
In terms of just reading through, sorry, lots of questions here. So questions again around the differences between offer letter versus employment agreement. I know, Sam, this is something that you and I spoke to as well. So lots of questions coming through about, can you use this feature for employment contracts? Is there a difference between the offer letter template versus an employment agreement template? And can you attach other documentation through this email that gets sent to candidates?
So currently it's a single document. Keep in mind, there still are onboarding documents. So when you hire a new employee, you can still add multiple documents to be signed or reviewed or acknowledged during that onboarding flow. But for this is intended to be that first step before adding them to onboarding. So currently that is a single signer, single document.
Okay. Okay. And I think there was a question here about pushing someone through to onboarding. So say that the CEO of the company isn't necessarily using Humi, but wants to hire them. You might have touched on this, but can you again just go through what that scenario would look like if you wanted to move someone through the process?
So if they had received an offer letter and we want to push them through into onboarding?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I'll pull up another example. So at this point, so typically it's sort of the expected flow would be that, of course, they see the offer letter, they view it, they sign it, and then at that point you go and hire them. But there's nothing stopping you from this stage, any admin who has access to this module to hire people and view other users in the system, from actually hiring this person. So the CEO could just go in here, they could click hire, and again, that will pull them right into the regular, just like adding an employee any other way in Humi, into that new hire flow. And you just follow the steps here. Again, you can add documents and things like that in step 3. When you send that out, the employee will, or the candidate at that point will receive everything they need to know for their regular Humi onboarding.
Okay. And again, getting lots of comments in the chat just about multiple co-signers. I know every business structures that differently. So we've definitely made a note of that, just seeing lots of feedback here around multiple signature requirements for some of our clients. So we've definitely made a note of that. Have a great question here around contractors. So one of the users hires contractors that they don't load into Humi because of the varied pay terms. So are they able to load them into Humi but not use all the features because they think it would be great to have a place where all of the contracts are housed?
Could they, sorry, just to clarify the question, like can they extend an offer letter that doesn't specify salary, or?
Not add the user into Humi, but instead house the contracts for some of their contractors in Humi itself without necessarily having to pay them through the Humi payroll platform or having to hire them through the Humi ATS.
Mm-hmm. So they never want them. I mean, there's nothing theoretically stopping you from extending offers, like adding offer letters and extending them to candidates and having them sign them. You could theoretically keep them in pending for as long as you want, and then when they do sign, actually, let me show you an example of that. So if they have accepted, you'll be able to download that offer letter. So you could use it theoretically like that, where they're a candidate, you send an offer to them, they could sign it, and you would have access to that here. But you'd see that on your offers table as like, you'd have a bunch of people that are perpetually in pending. So it's a bit of a workaround, but it's theoretically doable, yeah.
Okay. Just last few questions here because I know that we are running a little bit over. So can you just show again, Sam, what it looks like when the candidate sees the offer and what that process looks like, what the email looks like for them?
Sure. Yeah, I don't want to pull up my email, but I'll show you this clip again. So essentially you get this email. So it'll include the candidate name. It'll include the company name. So I'll play it again. So you've got your name.
This is what the candidate sees.
Exactly. So I'm the candidate, I'm in my inbox and I got an email and it says, I've got an offer. It has my name, it has the company name, it has the position title, and then it has the expiration date. So please note that this offer expires on April 16th. And then it gives instructions on how to follow up, assuming that you're not just going to be signing that offer letter.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, at this stage in the process, it's assuming that they're going to be signing at that point, and maybe there's minor changes to be made. So again, that legally binding thing won't show. This is just for the demo. All those fields will be populated, and then all they have to do from that point is sign, which they can do directly on there. So again, the flow for the candidate is you get an email, you open up that email, you click the link that you have. That link is only accessible to you. And then when you pop in, you can add your signature, send it back, And now the candidate will be able to download that offer letter for their own records.
Okay. Okay, great. One of the last questions here. So when customizing the offer, some of those populated fields that you had pulled down, including compensation. So the question here is, where does this information pull from? Is it dictated by the user per offer, or does it generate from the job posting itself?
That's a great question. So it will depend on the information that you input when you're sending out that offer. So when I go send offer and I put in this information, we've got a fake person, whatever, they report to me. And now, depending on what template you choose, that will determine what fields come up in the next step. And then you will fill those out for that particular offer being sent out. So let's say we're pulling up that same offer that we just created, that same template.
And now we can preview there, right? Just we had some questions around previewing the offer before it goes out.
So we can preview the template. Okay. We can't preview with those fields populated. If you want, you could create yourself as a candidate and send an email to yourself. But due to limitations with our signing partner, HelloSign, we can't preview it with those fields in there. But what you are able to do is at this step, you can take a look at the template, and then you can preview it from there. And then when you go into the next step, you could populate all that info. So again, you'll get the same options here. So you'll have all these fields pop up, because I included position, I included the start date, expiration date. But if I also included the salary or the compensation rate, or sorry, compensation frequency, things like that, it would prompt me and I could fill that out for that particular candidate as I send it out.
Okay. And now in the position here, accountant is a fairly short title. We've got a question around the length. So how does the PDF format for that template handle the different titles that may not actually fit into that space allowed?
Great question. So I would recommend just adding a little bit of extra space just in case you do, so that you don't have to be creating new templates. However, HelloSign does shrink and expand the text depending on the field that you add. So I would say, do a rough estimate of what you think the title will be, maybe add a little bit on the end. But if you do have something that is a little bit longer, it's not going to like cut off or anything like that. It'll just shrink it a little bit. So it still will be legible by the candidate.
Okay. And when you input the salary data, is that, how does that number populate? Is there a way to add the currency? Does that depend on what you input in the document template? Just questions around what the compensation input looks like.
Yes, so for compensation, it's the same thing as these other fields here. So it'll just be another field that you fill out and you simply input a number. There's no way to specify a different currency at this stage. However, if that is something that would add value, please share that feedback with us. I mean, I guess you just did, but we'll be collecting these types of feedback, and maybe that's something we'll incorporate in the future.
Yeah. And then last question, can hiring managers receive visibility to the offer letter process?
Yeah, so you can. So again, all admins will be able to see this, and you can also create custom roles. So as long as you have access to people and the ability to hire people, then you will be able to send out and view offer letters.
Okay, great. And again, to reiterate that if whether it's a very long title or somebody with a very long name, does HelloSign customize the size of what fits into that PDF?
Yeah, so here, let me show just real quick. You can actually adjust the size of each of those. So I don't think I resized them just now in the demo. You drag them on and then you can stretch and expand them however you want. So you could theoretically make it a little bit longer. You can add more space if you want, but if it does go beyond that box, it'll just shrink to fit inside that box.
Okay. Okay.
All
well,
right.
There's a lot of good questions here that have been asked, some that I've taken note of myself. I know that our team is also taking note of every single question. And my understanding is that this recording will be posted within our support library. We will be posting answers to some of the questions as well. But otherwise, I would just like to take some time to thank everybody for coming out and joining us on this sunny Wednesday afternoon here in Ontario. And thank you so much, Sam, for your time and walking us through this exciting feature. I'm really excited for it to launch tomorrow.
Thank you.
Um,
Yeah.
and otherwise, I just again like to wrap up and say thank you to everybody for joining.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Okay, take care.